Representative Jasmine Crockett isn't just going to confront Kash Patel. She's about to hold up a mirror to an institution that has been drifting further and further away from the mission it claims to uphold. What you're about to see won't just be a tense exchange. It will be a moment where the stakes of American democracy, public safety, and equal protection under the law are laid bare in front of the entire country.
So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacists, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues, and frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay. So here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody, and then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap, because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot. as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I'll respond. Kash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, deputy director of national intelligence with the National Security Council, chief of staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI director. I think that's a pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country. And we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing. With that, I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I think you're witnessing some auditions, clickbait auditions for the Academy Award for my Democratic colleagues. We'll see how they fare as they're on MSNBC later on today. But do you care, before I launch into my line of questioning, to respond to Ms. Crockett from Texas on that very elaborate and theatric display?
Here's what I've learned in my government service. I don't give a damn what they say about me as long as I'm succeeding in the mission. We're succeeding in the mission because the men and women of the FBI have never been empowered to do more work and to hit the streets harder than by President Trump's authorities and resources he's given us. And so all I care about is that we are capturing more child predators than ever before, taking more drugs off the streets than ever before, that we are capturing murderers at a significantly historic rate, and we're delivering this country the lowest murder rate in recorded history. That are facts that you cannot dispute. But you can come at me all you want. I don't care.
Thank you, Director, for that. And we appreciate your service. We appreciate the results speak for themselves, I think, pretty plainly, and your commitment not only to results, but to transparency. So we do appreciate that.
Crockett's frustration was not performative. It came from a place that far too many Americans, especially Black Americans, deeply understand. When she questioned Patel's qualifications, it wasn't an insult. It was a reminder of a pattern we've seen in recent years, political loyalty being elevated above competence, experience, or commitment to the rule of law. Patel has never served a single day in the FBI, yet he is leading the agency responsible for domestic terrorism, civil rights enforcement, counterintelligence, and investigations that require decades of institutional knowledge. Crockett's point wasn't about credentials on paper. It was about whether the person running the FBI is capable of confronting the most urgent threats facing the country. And that's where her commentary hits even harder. When she says Black Americans don't feel safe, she is speaking from real lived experience, real data, and real history. The threats coming from the far right are not abstract. They are documented, measurable, and growing. Yet the leadership of the agency tasked with monitoring them refuses to even name the source. That refusal isn't neutral. It's dangerous. It signals to extremists that their actions won't be met with equal urgency. It signals to vulnerable communities that their safety is optional. Crockett brought receipts from both parties to show exactly how widespread the threat is. Republicans receiving death threats after refusing to support Jim Jordan, a member of Congress whose wife slept with a firearm because the threats were so severe, a colleague whose life was nearly taken. All of these incidents had one thing in common: right-wing extremism. But instead of acknowledging this reality, Patel downplayed it, redirected, or bragged about wins that weren't even led by the FBI, but by parents turning in their own child. Crockett wasn't exaggerating the stakes. She was highlighting a structural truth. An FBI that is understaffed, underprepared, and unwilling to address white supremacy is an FBI that cannot protect the American people. When she brought up the 14-year staffing backlog, she was pointing to a collapse in capacity that has been building for years. While terrorism threats evolve in real time, the FBI is shrinking. While extremist violence rises, the agency is losing expertise. While Americans of color face disproportionate dangers, leadership refuses to confront the ideology fueling those dangers. This is why her confrontation mattered. It wasn't about theatrics. It was about accountability. It was about telling the truth when others are too afraid or too politically aligned to do so. And it was about showing that the agency responsible for protecting Americans cannot do its job if it refuses to recognize who Americans need protection from. If anything, the reaction from the Republican members on the committee made her point even clearer. They didn't rebut her facts. They didn't disprove her concerns. They simply dismissed them as theater. But dismissing the lived experiences of targeted communities has always been the easy way out. Crockett chose the harder path, naming the problem out loud. And that's what viewers need to take away from this moment. When our political system rewards loyalty over expertise, when agencies are hollowed out, when those in power refuse to confront white supremacy, the consequences aren't theoretical. They affect real people. They determine who feels safe, whose lives are valued, and whether our democracy can withstand its most serious internal threats. If this country is going to move forward, voices like Crockett's can't just be heard. They must be understood. They must be amplified. They must be acted on. If you want more breakdowns that cut through political spin and explain what these moments mean for our safety, our democracy, and our future, make sure you subscribe. Let's keep building a space where truth is not optional and accountability isn't negotiable.